Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution
Each week we interview top artists.
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Lirona, welcome to Origin Stories.
Hi.
You
Thank you for
made
having
it.
me.
Absolutely. Been probably what, a month or so in the works. I feel like we're circling the idea of an origin story, and now we find ourselves here, ready to dig in.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's talk.
All right, let's talk. And our talk begins with one question, the power question. Lirona, what is your origin story?
Oof. Well, we can go way back to the point where I was, 14 and not really great in school and really didn't feel like I was doing anything right but writing my weird little blog that had like photos that I was taking and expressing myself in a way that um no one other than me and my little group of friends and my little circle were doing. So I felt a little bit alone in a way that I wasn't exactly like everyone else. A little bit kind of ADD, wouldn't sit on my butt at school that much, really wouldn't be anything like my other friends who were just like excelling at everything they were doing. And I was looking for an outlook. So I think as an origin, that moment where I would like kind of not really steal, but like kind of steal my parents' camera and use it because it was like the family camera that we would just document things, but I would like make art with it and transfer it to my computer and work on like very early versions of Photoshop to edit in very terrible ways that if you look back on it right now, but kind of like jump starting creativity by using software and my computer. That was really where that seed began, where I just felt myself when I was doing all of that. And like slowly it became apparent that that's what I was good at. And I was always pretty creative as a child, and I would sing and dance and like make up all these like choreographed bits to my family and would sing on stages around my hometown. But no one thought that I was really kind of like artistic in a way because I couldn't really draw. I still can't. It's really weird. I can't really draw anything. So I wasn't like the one who can paint and sketch at school even. But for me, it was more about like learning, I think, software and kind of teaching myself things that got me engaged and interested. And long term, I think that's what brought me to where I am today. Because like for what you know that I do, I am self-taught, like I taught myself 3D and I'm kind of still always feeling like I'm learning. And so it really was about that. It was about diving into something that I can teach myself. Yeah, later on, I was actually serving in the Army for 2 years and I was a motion graphics artist there. And the way that I got to that job in the Army was because I had a kind of a portfolio of illustrations and photographs that I used to take. At that point, my family was very supportive and really trying to give me all the tools that they could to see me thrive in that space, because I obviously wasn't really thriving in other spaces. So that one was really getting me kind of grounded and sitting on my computer for hours and teaching myself things. And I think they saw that potential. Yeah, and after that, after the Army, I went to freelance. I was a motion graphics artist and decided that if I really wanted to be this commercial like working artist, I need to study design. And so I worked really hard for 2 years to save a lot of money as a freelancer, like really putting every dollar that I could for a saving account that later on kind of helped me pay school. I went to New York with now my husband and my boyfriend, and then we went to school in New York, and that was the most incredible experience anyone could ever have. Like I came from Tel Aviv, which is a great city, but New York was, the amount of inspiration at every corner was absolutely It was perfect. And so, yeah, after that, I started working in the field. Right out of school, I started working at Segmeister and Walsh, which was a pretty renowned, it's a huge branding studio now called And Walsh. And Jessica Walsh was like an incredible inspiration to me. She was my mentor. She was my teacher in school. And then she hired me through my last year in college to work in design. And that's where I kind of started really doing branding and also 3D, because that was a skill that I could bring into the table that not a lot of other designers had. So I really started kind of focusing my design work around 3D and how do I bring that into the branding space. Later on, started working with my husband at a creative company called The Artery, where they were incredible enough to kind of give us a budget and a department to start a design and technology studio. And working with incredible artists and kind of helping us bring that into the space. And then we had the fortunate experience of working with an incredible client called AirSwap and Fluidity. And they were all about like working in the blockchain space and DeFi. And that really opened us to that brave new world that in 2018 was popping, but most people that weren't in that space didn't know anything about it, and we didn't either. So it was like a couple of months of just like diving into what this technology is, who are these people, who are those teams, and we got really attached to them. Like they were our clients, but we would hang out with them and want to speak more and hear more and just immerse ourselves in what they were doing. And later on, my husband actually went to work for them as a product designer. And that's how we got introduced to the field. Later on, he was kind of telling me about NFTs, and I wasn't sure anyone's going to care at all. I was just telling him that I really just don't think anyone would ever buy work that I already have on Instagram, and like, who cares about a JPEG and who cares about an MP4? But he was pretty adamant. And after a while, it was like the end of 2020 that he convinced me to kind of try getting on.
Did you have an aha moment, or were you like, all right, I'll give this a shot because you believe in it, and then it kind of hit you later?
I really don't remember an aha moment. Like, I wish I could say I saw something that intrigued me. It was more like I wasn't trusting myself to be successful in that enough. And him believing in me was always like a really big part of who we are as a couple. We've been together now for 16 years. So we like almost grew up together. We've been together since we were 16. And so I trust him fully. And there was something that he was excited about for me. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to start listening in. I'm going to go on Clubhouse, on Twitter. I'm going to start understanding what this is about. And when I'm ready, I'm going to drop.
Yeah. And then now, has it been a progression since? And we don't have to skip too far ahead, but has it been a progression since, or did you end up having that moment maybe after the fact a little bit where you took a look, maybe you looked at it a bit of a different way and you said like, oh my gosh, maybe that art that I was posting for free on Instagram actually was worth something all along?
No, for sure. I think in that sense, it was an aha moment, because I did start seeing, and that was, I don't think it was even before that I dropped anything. I was starting to see some of my favorite artists and like people that I followed, like Fuck Render and like Catherine, like they started interacting with that space. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're perfect for this. They were always these digital artists that were doing commercial work, but also had their craft in such a particular way that I feel like art on the internet is them. Like it just made sense. And I was starting to then look at myself within that lens as well. As like, okay, so if these people who are digital artists who also have a commercial career, creative commercial career, can also have that side of them as like, I am an artist, like, why can't I? Because I was always looking at myself as a designer and always told myself that I'm not an artist. I'm a problem solver. I don't really have one distinct style. I can't draw. So how the heck am I an artist? Like all of those things that fed into me not knowing why anyone would care about my work in this space. And it was actually verified to me a little bit by my, quest to try and go on Nifty and Super Rare, and having them not really care at all about me when I tried joining in the beginning of 2021. Like no one came back to me. I wrote emails, I try to get people, I try to, talk to people to help. Like no one really cared. From the platform standpoint. From an artist standpoint, everyone was like super supportive and so nice to help me through the beginning. But after really in Super Rare and Nifty, there wasn't really an interest. I decided I'm just gonna do it on my own in some capacity, if that's starting with foundation, getting an invite from a fellow artist that was amazing to bring me on, David, or just, later on Rarible, when I was like, I just want to create a collection and I don't want anyone telling me how many pieces I can mint and what is the editions number. Like I want to keep that open. I want to really build something that is right for me. And that's why I also chose Rarible as a platform. They were incredibly open and egalitarian and really just were waiting for artists to do whatever they could with the tools that they had at the time.
So you have the Nifty and Super Rare experience, which is the opposite of the red carpet. You decide, I'll do this myself. You get the invite to foundation. What's the literal first thing that you mint? And then how do you come to that decision?
So it was weird. I think at the time, the Genesis piece didn't really have the same gravitas as it has right now. We didn't really think about it this way. It was more like, what do I want to put out that feels like a token to me? And that's why I did a little series of these like rotating tokens that are called heads, like talking heads. And I think it was when I put it on Instagram, and I think Fuck Render saw it and he was like, this is cool. Like, I love it. And I thought that that's probably what I needed to know about this new NFT space. Like I had no idea what kind of art and work goes into that. I only knew that it was a particular flavor of work at that time. And I think getting that appreciation and kind of like comment from Fred at the time was everything that I needed. And he would be like a leading role in my NFT career later on as well, because first of all, he then bought most of my Genesis series and was the first person to kind of get me started in a way. But also when I started my collection, boiz, I gifted him the first boy because I really felt like I owe it to him, and not in a negative way, in any kind of way. I just wanted to honor his help and his time and everything that he put into my starting out in this world, and his kindness. And then later on, when that piece sold for that much money, that was another boost. Like I was so happy, first of all, that he can make a profit off of this piece, but also the fact that it sold so high made it that the boiz sold so high. So it wasn't only that I was happy to give it to him, and I didn't think he would either sell it or keep it, or like, I had no idea. I was so new to the space. I didn't know what's going to happen. But it was just coming out of like, I wanted to thank him. So I think I did it. I started kind of alone, again, like with my husband, but it's the community who I really feel like in a way was my team, because so many people, like not only artists who were helping me from their perspective after dropping in Nifties and Super Rare, and like they were kind of savvy in the space at that point, but also the community of people who got attached to boiz early on when I just dropped, like Justin and Orphan and Greek, like all of those people who made it their mission to spread boiz around because they loved the concept, they loved the art, and they became, ambassadors, and they weren't getting anything for it. They were just there for the art. They were just there for me. And later on, we created this like collector base of people who are collecting boiz. And not only do we have the Discord that Ryan is running, and he's incredible, but also there's like a chat where all of the one-of-one collectors are in it, and they're really like my board. Like I really care about everything they do, everything they think. They bring ideas, they comment on my ideas and my decisions, and it became this like collaborative effort later on where I think it's important to remember that maybe I kind of didn't get any help from the platforms, but I got so much help from everyone else.
There's a lot of talk about vibes in NFTs, and like boys and girls are a vibe. Like they are a very clear vibe. I think
What does that mean? I never know.
I don't know either. It's just like a feel, like the, you know, an emotion that surrounds the art itself, the creator, the community. It just seems to permeate everything. I don't know. You know, I was not early, right, in boiz. I think you know, Lirona like crashed onto my sphere probably several months into when you began. But almost immediately it was like, what's this? What's going on? What is this art? You start looking at that. You start, you know, the people interacting around it, the way that you interact on social. And it's very apparent there's something special going on there.
That's so amazing to hear. I think it's really about paying it forward in terms of the good vibes and keeping this community so positive. I think when we all started, there was that thing about like memes and where do we take those with boiz. And at some instant, I was like, I'm scared that it's going to become this like negative thing that is, you know, start using that in a negative way, the way that like people started using Pepe in a negative way. Like I was scared that phenomena that was happening would become negative. But then I realized that for some reason, whoever interacts with this project is an extremely positive person. Like I can't even, I don't even know why people who are so incredible are attracted to it, but everyone that interacted with that project brought some really incredible energy to it. And maybe that is the vibe. Maybe that's what it's all about. It's about bringing positivity, not in like in a childish or kind of like naive way. It's more about like, we're all in this together. We're all working hard. None of us is perfect. Like that boy figurine that I created in VR on like December 2021. Yeah, 2021. Right? No, 2020. Geez, what
next
year?
month.
Yeah, exactly. No, next month. Like about a year ago, when I created it, it was this really uncanny thing that some people got really attracted to and others hated. And like I still get some comments about people being like, you know, I really didn't like that at first. But the more I look at it, the more you do with it, the more it becomes this canvas that's almost holding emotions in different ways, in different aesthetics. The more I get attracted, I can't look away. And I think that's what it has. It brings in from all different places, and everyone is just kind of captivated to this figurine that no one can really understand what they're totally about. Neither can I. Like it's almost that boy was revealed to me by the craft. I wasn't trying to create it. I was just creating in VR, and it just came to be. And then I decided to, you know, design around it and kind of, you know, mock it up and have a room for it and have lighting and have texture. And I think my husband saw it and he was like, this is the best thing you've ever done. I was like, this is not the best thing I've ever done. Hey, don't say that. Like, it's really weird. And he was like, no, I really think so. And it's been a reoccurring theme where my husband sees a lot of things about me that I sometimes miss. And I think it's a lot about the, you know, looking at work that everyone can see something different in it. And that's what this brings to the table, a vibe.
Vibe. So boiz, where does the name come from? boiz.
I looked at that thing and I was like, this is what it is.
Mhm.
It's a boy, and there are gonna be multiple of them, and they're not like masculine like boys. They're not about that. They're about kind of this weird creature that's actually, like, when I think about it, I know it's weird to say, but they're kind of genderless. Like, I think they
Mhm.
can take a lot of forms, and they can take a lot of moods, and they can be very feminine and very masculine at the same time. So it's not like girls is just women and boys is just men. Not at all. I look at it like I can really see myself in a lot of those boys. And I think some of them really speak to a lot of like a very feminine energy to them. So it kind of came out of like, it, again, something that kind of revealed itself. It made sense. And then, using the Z is really about differentiating from a regular word to a brand. And I come from branding. So, that and understanding a little bit about marketing and what to do, and, why would one piece stand out when a series of them can then become a whole story to tell. And I think that's what changed a lot in this particular series, is that there were 8 of them, and they were all telling different stories, and together they became a collection, as opposed to just having one and expecting someone to, kind of connect with it. So a lot of my decisions on that project came from the perspective of really understanding branding. And I think a lot of other people later on started utilizing that for their projects as well. It was really apparent when you started seeing these bigger collections come through with logos, with color palettes, with like distinct aesthetics and silhouettes that are really
Mhm.
important for people to recognize. Obviously, something that pops out of you from a little profile picture, that's also pretty important. Like, how does it stand out as its own little mark? That's really
Mhm.
important. So it all came from that.
I like this juxtaposition with boys of simplicity and complexity. You look at it in one light and it can seem quite simple, quite simple, limited components, right? And it
Mhm.
immediately just strikes you. But then the other side, when you start to get down into the details, you start to get into the textures you use, the materials you use, the descriptions you use of all the components of the boy, it starts to get quite clever and quite complex. I've always appreciated that juxtaposition.
Thank you. It's really what I go for. It's always, for me, there's a maximalist minimalism in
Mhm.
me. I don't think that things that are hyper simplified and there's nothing to them are as successful as things that the beauty is in the details. And it really is about that. It's about taking something that's a really simplified canvas in a way and bringing a lot of thoughtful details into it. And I'm glad that you're seeing that, because it does come through. Like, when I sit and write those descriptions, that like sometimes take me longer than actually creating the book. Like, it's
Mhm.
just, it's a part of the project, and that's why it hasn't changed. Even though I brought in collaborators onto the project, I've never started like blubbering about what this particular piece is about, because they always stand as a collection, and they will always stand as a collection. Other, pieces that I make using boys, that's a completely different thing. It's like one-on-one artwork, and that's not really a part of the collection. But when we're looking at these specifically cropped figurines that work really well as a profile picture, all the details there are meant to shine. And I am happy that it's coming through.
It's coming through loud and clear. And so take us through a couple. And I know it's not a matter of holding one boy over another, but just randomly off the cuff here, if you were to go back to the very first boy and fast forward to the very last boy, just pick a couple along the way that today strike you for one reason or another.
Interesting. Well, that's always hard, because people always ask me which ones are my favorite, but I do have a couple. So first of all, the ones that I airdropped are the ones that are definitely the most special to me, because I've made them in light of certain people that I actually have such strong feelings to. And so um definitely Fred Fuckrender, Malavita, which was the collector of my fourth ever NFT, but at that point was very expensive. Like it was one 1.75 ETH, which was for me an unthinkable amount of money for a piece. I don't even know why I priced it that way. I think I didn't want to sell it. Like I loved that piece that I minted so much. I was like, oh wait, like even if it takes 2 years until someone would care about this, I don't want to let this go under a certain price or something like that. And she fell in love with it and immediately like bid on it and got it on foundation. And so I made Magic Boy in her light, and it's kind of using her textures, and it created this incredible weird wizard looking dude that also felt kind of old. Like boys sometimes look very young and sometimes they look ageless, but that particular one felt ancient and had this wisdom to it. And I don't like, maybe we can bring it in later on in post to kind of show it, but it has a ton of details and every little piece of it is placed perfectly in order to convey that emotion. That's why it's called Magic Boy. I really see her work as that magical world that you just dive in and you can't look away. And that's what I wanted to do with the boy. So that's one of them. Definitely the boy is the one that I feel like, you know, the Genesis piece is what came out of me. Like it still feels like my firstborn. And it was also the one that I think like looking back is the kookiest looking one. Like it's almost absurd looking, but I love it for it because I think they became more and more sophisticated as time went, and as I tried different things like different sizes for eyes and mouths and no eyes at all, and like more accessories, like more sophisticated textures. Like that one was so raw that I think it was the one that it's still the one that stands out to me. The one that I made for Greek, it was kind of like when I really didn't do any commissions early on, but Greek has collected so many of my early pieces at quite high prices at that point, that he really wanted one that had like marble on and had like a weird crooked eye, the way that he kind of goes in the metaverse. He has that weird eye, and I created one in his light as well, and I really loved it. So that one is definitely Greek Boy. And really the whole 8 of them that I created for my Genesis holders, like 888, Naito, and Jordan, they were all incredible supporters of that project in the not that early days, but quite early days that set me apart because of the insane amounts of ETH that they dropped on that project. They fought hard to get every piece, and they paid incredible amounts of ETH for them. And I also think that what set that project apart at that time, because it was making some waves in the NFT world, and it was kind of bringing me up in value in a lot of ways. So the whole series that I've done for them, I'm really attached to, because I sat on it for so long and really tried to encompass each and every one of them in their own way. Probably my physical favorite out of all of them is the one that I made for 888, Spiritual Boy, and the one that I made for Jordan, which is Global Boy. It's because I sat with him for quite a while and tried getting out of him like all those things that he's about, and that really came to be that he's just like a citizen of the world, and that egalitarian, you know, borderless vibe from him was incredible and sat very much in line with what I feel about blockchain in general. So yeah, I think these two. And the more drops that I'm gonna do this month are fucking incredible. So I think one of them is definitely going to be an all-time fev.
Amazing. A couple couple that cross my mind here. There's three of them that just jump out to me. I'm going to steer clear from the collabs because you can get lost down that rabbit hole. Like the Deface one that you just did. Deface is near and dear to my heart, and seeing that come to life was unbelievable. And what tends to always happen with these boy auctions, by the way, is for some reason on a number of them, the bids stay kind of reasonable for quite some time. Too long where I start to get the fun idea in my head that I may actually, this may be my moment for a one-of-one boy. And then all of a sudden in the span of like 17 minutes, it goes from 2 ETH to 34 ETH.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't understand.
It's how it goes.
I sit at the edge of my chair and I'm just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy about it.
But steering clear from the collabs and going to some of the boys for the people, right? Mm-hmm. Analog Boy, Dream Boy, and Broken Boy, all colorful in their own unique ways. But those three, for whatever reason, have struck me.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I think there's something about them. Well, Dream Boy is very complex, like definitely very colorful. But a lot more complex than Analog Boy, I would say, right? What was the third one that you said?
Analog Boy, Dream Boy, and Broken Boy.
Broken Boy, yeah. I think out of all of the editions one, Broken Boy is by far my favorite. There's something about those 50 pieces that are also 50 editions that, you know, I wanted to make sure that everyone kind of understand that I don't just put those editions out just for the sake of doing them. It's, first of all, I think it's a great vessel to get people feeling a part of it when they want to, even though they may not be able to afford a one-of-one because of what's kind of happening with the floor on those. But there is something about really still paying meticulous attention to what I'm doing with editions, the same way that I'm doing with one-of-ones. And I think the Lucky Boy is probably a good idea there, where I created it as a one-of-one. And I had kind of my husband in mind when I created it. And then I was like, it's so beautiful. And it's such an important piece for me to send luck to more people than just one. Like I really put in kind of my good thoughts in that when I created it. And it was all about really this charm almost for people to have. And then I decided to do it as edition instead, even though I probably knew that one would sell really high as a one-of-one. I wanted more people to have that good luck charm than, you know, just one person. And I think it was really successful in that way. When I could do editions at first, I did them as much as I could because it was just so fun to just have so many people wearing the boys everywhere. But the more the project continued, and you know, there are only 100 boys and 1,000 edition boys, we're getting to the point where editions are going to be very scarce because there aren't that many. We're in 800 and something. I got a few other ideas for editions, but they're going to be smaller editions. But then at this point, I'm kind of like pissed at myself that I decided to just do thousands of them, because it is so much fun to have community engagement in that way, where, you know, 10K projects can just have, because more people can be a part of the community. Boiz is really small, but I still hope maybe it's enough.
Well, so here's a question. Feel free to not answer it or answer it, depending upon how fully fleshed out or not the thought process may be. And I know the idea behind boys and girls is not gender-based necessarily, right? Made that pretty clear. But do you ever envision doing something with girls? That was always a question in my mind, where when there was a girls, I think there's what, two girls variations as of present day. I was thinking, I'm like, is Lirona going to girls next after these 1,000 editions are moonlighted?
Yes. So definitely girls is going to be the next step. What I'm thinking right now for girls is doing something a little bit different. I definitely want to use every collection that I ever do, no matter what the number is, to do something a little bit different. Because I told you I'm a little bit ADD. I get bored really easily. If I'm not engaged in something, it's not interesting for me, and new frontiers is always great. So I think what what I'm planning to do with gurlz is dedicate that to women collaboration. So it's really gonna be about trying to do some really good stuff for women with that. And again, it's not about just because gurlz is something that has an earring or could be a feminine figure. It's really about bringing more women into the space. And I think that could be a really interesting canvas to do it in. And then hopefully I still have this thought that maybe it will, attract more, famous women who are getting into this space and want to do good and want to like raise money for things and want to make sure that they support women. And that's an interesting way of doing that. And I think gurlz is going to be pretty amazing to do it with. And it was born from a collaboration with Lisa, which was always like, when I talked to her, was always about making that one girl, and then maybe doing other things with it. But the second that the Genesis piece, like that bust that I made with Lisa, came to be out of a collaboration, I was like, I think gurlz should be about women's collaboration. And that's I think where I'm going to take it.
Amazing. I mean, it seems like it was right there. I was hoping you were going to answer the question, but totally understood if you just wanted to be like, maybe we'll see how that goes.
I can't, never say never on the one hand, but also never promise something that you're not 100% into yet, just because I'm so dedicated to boiz. I don't want to do anything else. Like, I really want to focus on that and finishing that project strong without kind of trying out different things. I still have so much to give in this, and I'm still taking those last 20 boiz. I'm really gonna try and make an impact with each and every one of them. So it's all about like dedication to this particular project, making the best out of that, and then moving on to other things.
And then meanwhile, you have, your artworks on Foundation, right, that now predate boiz in some ways, shapes, and forms. Those were super interesting because me personally, when I sort of came to the dawning conclusion that it was becoming harder and harder to acquire a one-of-one boy, like I got obsessed one beat too late to go down that road. Who knows? I'm not never giving up hope, but
yeah, the market is weird. Like sometimes it slows.
But going back to your artworks on Foundation, it almost became like this treasure trove of like, oh, this other side of Lirona, and you talked a little bit about your True Genesis piece, right? But then you have your subtitle series as well.
Yeah, totally. I am really into making a lot of things. I'm really not just like a one-trick pony with, I'm going to just do boiz for the rest of my life. Like, not at all. And that's also like, I get people asking me about boiz 10K and things like that. I'm like, no, if I ever make a 10K, it's not going to be a boiz. It's going to be something else. Like, I'm never going to change the structure of boiz, which is the scarcity of it is a big part of the promise. And if we start having 1,000 different looking things that look like boiz in the world, then it's just not going to be the same. And it's not going to be the promise that I made to my collectors. So in that same way, I'm so interested in so many other things. And one art that could work beautifully on the wall or as a mural is something that I'm like personally so passionate about. So that's something that I'm going to continue doing. Like, subtitles is definitely something that I don't feel like I finished yet, but it would finish at some point. And then, I have my flower kind of collection, like future collection that I'm working on that I really love. And it really is about this meditative flower garden, non-fungible garden that I'm working on. Again, it's all about focus. I try to keep it very central. So even though I made a flower that I know is going to be a really successful piece of work, I'm going to wait until it's the perfect time to dedicate all my time to do that. And then subtitles is something that's coming out of me without even trying. It's things that I'm seeing. It's things that I'm experiencing, even right here in the desert, in LA, in the ocean. Like, it's a little bit about my actual like visual world. So it's going to continue for a little while. And one pieces for me, like, I still hope that one day I'll have a gallery show where it's, not only boiz, it's like really my whole collection that I feel like kind of speaks. There is a theme there's a through line with most of my work that a lot of people come and tell me, like, I see a piece and I know it's yours, and it's not because it's the same exact, craft or style. It's because there's a touch to it that's just unique to you. And I hope that I'll continue making, a big collection of work that has all of that.
No doubt. There's a gallery coming. For sure. For sure.
Amen.
Just a matter of time. Just a matter of
Amen.
time. How about a lightning round, Lirona?
Okay, cool. I'm not that quick. I don't know if you can see it. I don't speak very quickly, but yes, let's try it.
All right. Quick takes or not, or hit timeout, break the rules, and go off on a tangent. It could be
Okay,
either
cool.
way. All right, ready?
Yeah.
All right, lightning round. Topic number 1, NFTs.
What do I think of them?
First thing that comes to mind. I just throw a word at you or a phrase.
Art. Really.
Ethereum.
Money.
Fuck render.
Love.
Foundation.
Genesis.
Boiz.
Babies.
Subtitles.
Art. Sorry, twice art.
Gurlz.
Future.
New York City.
Love.
Fuck render.
Again?
Again.
Love. Very much. Mentor.
Perfect. 888.
Wow.
Rai.
Huge part of my family.
The last artist, not better or worse, just the last chronologically, that you saw a work from and said, why don't more people know about this?
I think, I don't know, maybe a lot of people know about this, but Siobhan Wong is, maybe I'm saying that correctly, Siobhan Wong is probably one of the most incredible female NFT artists that I've seen lately. And I think her latest collection just speaks volume to what she's going to do in our industry and where she's thinking things. She's just so thoughtful and open and creative, and then just talented as fuck. Like, it's incredible.
That was an incredible series. Love is Love, right?
Yeah, Love is Love.
That was unbelievably well done.
Unbelievably well done. Such a smooth drop, such a great, like, the hype building and community building towards it, and then the art is just spectacular. Again, like, people, whatever people got, they loved, because it was such a strong theme and concept. And that's what I really think is successful in this space. Whoever gets to do that, whoever gets to do storytelling and narrative through their work as a through line is going to be successful. And I don't know if she's as famous as she needs to be. She's famous for me, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
I actually lost track. I agree with you. The one piece associated with that collection, I actually lost track of, and it blew my mind. I'm like, if it's possible, that people are still not sleeping on Siobhan. I think Siobhan did quite well. The collection was incredible, but whoever got that for 4 ETH, I was like, wow, that's a special artwork that I think
it's going to be monumental.
Will do quite well.
Exactly. And I also want to shout out someone else that's been building in our community, and it's he's an artist and a designer that I absolutely love his work and his touch, but also just like from a building perspective. I don't know if you know of Orphan Crypto. First of all, he's a fantastic presenter and he has his own show, and he's fantastic to our community. He's very smart. He also has his own kind of like design aesthetic and creative touch that I've collected a few of his pieces early on. And I actually think he's very undervalued, to the point where he might not be putting out his work out all the time, but whenever he does, he has such an incredible touch to things. And he's a fantastic designer, which I think is always very important for a founder of a project. So he doesn't have a collection, but he does have some pieces that I've collected and others have as well. And I recommend kind of like looking into it, because I think he's just overall, as a founder in the space, does a lot more than just art. but also his philosophy and his thinking and what he's building right now. He's building his own really interesting project that I'm going to be kind of a part of as well. He does things that people need to see. So hopefully everyone look him up.
Two strong shout outs.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a different question. Open it up again, just ask a little bit of a different way. Not better or worse, just chronologically. What's the last specific artwork that you saw that made your jaw drop?
Interesting. I think everything that Sheer Pachman does is really interesting to me. She's an emerging artist in the space. I've been planning on getting a piece from her for a while. I'm kind of waiting for the one that I really want because I know it's going to come. But I think everything that she does has that touch to it, that aesthetic of both fine arts and 3D that's almost like confusing to look at. Like you're not sure what you're looking at. Like, is it 3D? Is it fine arts? That is something that I think like is really, really unique. And someone that's, I don't think she's undervalued more than she is just in the beginning of her NFT career. And then there is also Van Meenen, who I'm kind of speaking to about a collaboration. He's a painter and he's pretty new to the NFT community. We were speaking like a month ago and I was telling him all about it, and now he's kind of joined and he is mind blown by what's happening and like the amount of creativity. And I think he really loves what's going on, but his work is probably the most stunning work I've ever seen in my entire life. And he's a fine arts painter. So for me, a lot of the things that kind of cultivate a relationship between something that feels very physical and something that's digital is the topic of things that I'm interested in general. Not only that it's actually physical or not, but that it has that hand touch, that almost realism, that imperfection that I kind of talked about a couple of tweets ago, where we're imperfect as people. Art shouldn't be perfect in a way, and there's something very drawing about that, and that's something that I try to do with boiz. It's like it's meticulously made, but not in order to be perfect, but more in order to be perfectly realistic, which is very different. Yeah, I think these two
more topics.
Yes, go ahead.
Almost there. 2021.
Oof. So much building and creating. I'm absolutely excited. I know you know that I'm also a full-time commercial like associate creative director at Buck, and I gotta say that I'm as excited about that premise as I am about my own craft, because there's something about still being connected to the industry that I grew up in, and doing like almost cross-pollination between those two things, because it's bringing our commercial industry a little bit into NFTs and bringing a little bit of NFTs into the commercial industry. Like it's really thinking about how do you build a successful project from a campaign's perspective, so that bringing in from commercial, and then it's also like how do we help client understand that this is going to be the next world and they should be in it. And so I'm the most excited about being in that intersection. And I'm so happy for people who like quit their day jobs and are just so excited about being full-time artists and all of that. But to me, that cross-pollination between those two fields is going to be fucking mind-blowing. That's what I'm excited about.
See, that's fascinating to me. I love the way that you put that, because I do think that the common line is, you hear this sometimes. It's like, when are you quitting your job? You should quit your job. You should go all this because you can. But the way that you framed it as a superpower, that cross-pollination, the ability to reach over here and reach over there and gain inspiration here and inspire over there. I love
and educate in both, be educated and educate in both fields. And I think those companies, those brands need us to explain to them what's happening and how they should be involved. What's the right way to be involved, and having that knowledge now I think it's going to be super helpful within, the company that I work for, as being more of an advisor in that field. There's a lot of branding that goes hand in hand with this brave new world that's coming in, and we should make them really beautiful, really thoughtful, really strong brands to be able to, engage people and keep people and educate people. That's all very important to me. And I think doing that alone is a little hard. And so having a company behind me that also is supportive and is really interested, like intrigued and interested in what this new world is going to be about, and have so many artists that are now NFT artists and are getting into the field and trying to onboard those artists into our community. People who were always commercial artists and also had their practice and their own style that we're famous for. That's really what 2021 is going to be all about. Is it 2022? 2022 and at the end of 2021.
Well, those were you took the words right out of my mouth. So the first one was 2021, and I was going to lead with 2022. And it sounds like you really did just bridge that gap.
It's really that. It's really taking what I'm doing right now and the process that I'm going through right now with them as a company, but also myself, and then my own craft, and utilizing my time in a way that is right for both of us. Like, I don't want to leave, and I want to make sure that I have time for my craft, and that means sometimes working double the amount and working double the time. But it's really about utilizing myself for this impeccable moment in history, and being on that wave. It's really fun.
This impeccable moment in history. I like that quote a lot.
Thank you. My English is sometimes a little weird because it's not
impeccable.
my native tongue.
It was perfect right there. I think it's a great phrase, because I really do think this is a pretty impeccable moment in history as far as it goes. I think it's one that is easy to take lightly at times, and I think will remain very unique 3, 5, 10, 12 years from now as we look back. So I like the way you framed it.
Totally. I think it's the history books, and that's what's really exciting about being here. And I think we're doing it right, It's very hard to grow that much so quickly. And coming from like companies who have seen scale very fast, I look at our industry as like a little bit of a startup in a way. And we scaled really fast, and we ballooned almost in the span of 6 months. And we kept it real, we kept it positive, we kept it supportive. We're onboarding people, we're not shutting anyone out, we're not being mean about the people who were questioning us at first. We are really trying to have the door open here for everyone who's into, working together, creating, building the future, and art, all of it together. I'm really proud of us. We're doing it well.
Keep setting that example, Lirona. You're doing it with boiz. You're doing it and far beyond that. And so many, you said the phrase through line, right? You have this through line through all of your artworks, but your artwork goes so far beyond boiz. You can, you look over there at subtitles, you look over there at what the future might hold. It's pretty stunning what you've created in just about a year's time.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be celebrating a year in February, and I'm trying to finish the project by then. But as I tell everyone and people I collaborate with as well, I never put a timeline on art. Like when things are ready, they're ready. I suspect it could be done in 1 year, but if it won't, then it won't.
Well, whether it is or it isn't, I feel like the whole community has to come together and do something special that day, the 1 year anniversary of boiz.
Yes, that would be really awesome. Yeah, and yeah, before we wrap, I did want to shout out all of the collaborating artists on the projects that really, a lot of them brought, like all of them actually, brought a piece of themselves to this project and did things with the boiz that I wouldn't be able to do myself in so many different ways. Not even just craft wise, it's just like really bringing their heart and soul into this piece that they've created with me. And working with these artists as a creative director is probably the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, because these people really care about what they do and I really care about what we do together. And it became this synergy of people who just want the best. And working with clients for so long, where sometimes just like incentives aren't aligned in the way that you would want to, when you work with artists like that within our community, everyone is not only the most talented, is just also just listens and egoless and just there to create the best kind of work within the framework. So I really wanted to thank each and every one of those people who worked with me on that, and of course the collectors, everyone from the smallest to the biggest. You've made this project what it is. Like, I couldn't have done that without anyone.
Amazing. I think the way you speak about it, the way you speak about them, I think it's pretty clear for me. I'll say it, you don't have to. You look at the collaborators, you look at the community, and it really did all start with you. And I think you walk it forward day after day. So you do all of the most amazing and nice things there, and then I'll do the same for you. This has been your origin story. Lirona, thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.